What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Dirty Bird Fly Through. And they kept it close for a half, and then the wheels fell off. The Falcons got absolutely smothered by the Seahawks again. It is probably I would say the third time the Falcons have been absolutely smothered in a game this season. And this was just another showcase of that today. The Falcons went up in this game 6-3. The defense was making plays all throughout the first half, was preventing Seattle from getting in the end zone, was dealing with some great field position, was able to really back Seattle up. They got some sacks. James Pierce Jr., his fifth straight game with a sack. The offense wasn't really doing anything in the first half, but enough to get Zane Gonzalez in field goal range to give the Falcons a 6-3 lead. But after that, everything fell apart. Falcons were outscored 34-3 the rest of the way, lose 37-9 in their home stadium to the Seattle Seahawks. And it's not like there was an expectation necessarily that the Falcons were going to win this game, but you would have at least liked to see them stay competitive. And for the first half, that's what it looked like was going to happen. But the moment the second half kicked off, this game completely flipped. Seattle, they did what they had to do. They took care of business, and you saw this Falcons team absolutely fall apart under any pressure. And I don't think there's really much else that can be said about this other than what has been said in previous weeks. Raheem Morris needs to be fired. This has clearly been a abject failure for the Falcons. Raheem Morris is probably one of the worst coaches in franchise history. When you look at the roster that he was given, the talent he was given a quarterback that we paid $180 million to. He was given a top 10 pick at quarterback. And at the end of the day, the Falcons have squandered both of those guys and what they potentially could have brought to the table. Obviously, injuries do change things, but injuries can only change things so much. It's clear and obvious that the Falcons at this point, they are a broken locker room. This is a broken team. They're not motivated to play. And we saw that in the second half. This team is playing to get Raheem Morris fired. I really think that is what we saw. We saw them show enough life in the first half, but the moment the second half kicked off, they went into high gear in what they do best, and that is losing. And this has, been another instance in what I would say is one of the most disappointing seasons in Atlanta Falcons history when you consider the roster that we had, the talent we had, the expectations coming into this season, and how this season has gone. Anything that could have gone wrong this season has gone wrong. The Falcons, they were 3-2. They beat the Bills, and after that loss to the 49ers, things started to fall apart. And how they got to that point, why they started to fall apart, I think to each their own on that. Did the Falcons really just kind of get exposed for who they actually are? Did the coaching get exposed? I think that is probably a great deal of it, but I also think that there were other issues in the locker room that have led the Falcons to the point of where they are, which is for the eighth straight year officially with the loss today, the Atlanta Falcons will not be making the playoffs. They will have another losing season, and at the end of the day, there is, I think, only so much that a fan base can actually take. Even the most loyal of loyal fans can only take so much before, even they start to show their frustrations. They do get frustrated with the team, and I don't think you will find one person right now that is in any way happy with the overall state of the Atlanta Falcons. It is probably one of the most lifeless stages that this franchise has been at in its entire history. It's probably right there with the '07 season and how awful that went. And Obviously, we know the following year the Falcons drafted Matt Ryan, third overall, and he was able to come in and change the trajectory of the franchise. It doesn't look like the Falcons are going to have an opportunity to do it that easy, especially with not having a first round pick, which I don't have a problem with because one of maybe the only bright spot of the Atlanta Falcons right now is James Pierce Jr., obviously having 5 straight games with a sack in each of them. He has been absolutely amazing to see come along over these past couple of weeks. But it's just an absolutely frustrating and brutal spot, I think, to be in if you are an Atlanta Falcons fan. And it really, I think, begs the question of when is Arthur Blank going to make the necessary move? You probably are not going to see it tomorrow because of the fact that the Falcons play on Thursday night, which with 4 games left in this season, I think the worst thing about all of it, this team is still scheduled to play in prime time twice. And that's just going to be an absolute delight seeing this dysfunction clown show on national television for everyone to witness up front and close. Because with Raheem Morris coaching this team clearly is lifeless. They have no motivation. They don't believe in what Raheem Morris is saying. They're not playing for Raheem Morris. And you can say all you want, but it points to a fractured and broken locker room. So I think that's really what this game went and showed us. There is no player of the game. Sure, Mike Hughes got an interception. Kyle Pitts had another solid game. I don't care. What I care about is how the Falcons looked today. They looked absolutely awful, but more importantly, they looked like a team that had given up on everything. They had not just given up on the season, they'd given up on their coach. They'd even given up on playing for each other. And I think that's just a really sad sight to see. But Seattle came in here and they took advantage. They needed this game. They knew they needed this game. They had to take advantage of this opportunity, and they sure as hell did the entire second half. They locked in. They came out with a much deserved victory. And the Falcons, once again, are, sitting here face planted with 4 games to go in what has been the season from hell. But with that being said, appreciate everyone for watching. There's really not much else to say about this game. There really was no recap of this game. We couldn't stop Jackson Smith and Jigba. We turned the ball over twice. Kirk Cousins, proving why he is probably nothing more than a backup quarterback at this point in the NFL. The fact that we're having to pay him all this money is an absolute joke. It's just absolutely demoralizing. But, next week, or Thursday night, there's another game. And I plan on, being back and finding something to talk about for that game, as hard as it's going to be. But thank you all for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, share out, and I will see you all in the next video.